everybody, I hope you're all doing well. My name is Mary and I'm a member of Ruche campus from Sherbrooke University. Today, my mission is to teach you two different methods to do your own Beewraps and reduce your waste production. So for the material, you'll need 100% cotton fabric, ideally recycled, scissors, 2 pots to do a double boiler, an iron, parchment paper, a cookie sheet, a grater, and beeswax. To begin, you need to cut your Beewraps. You can do like me and use your dishes to make patterns, or you can simply cut a larger size that will be versatile. If you have traced a pattern like I did, when you'll cut your fabric, make sure to leave a few centimeters of fabric in excess so that the Beewrap adheres well to your dishes. So for the first method, you are going to need a chunk of beeswax, your cookie sheet, and your grater. Start by grating your wax. Personally, I like to use the bigger cutter because it's faster and works just as well as the other. When you think you have enough wax, you'll have to cut 2 pieces of parchment paper big enough to cover your Beewrap well. Then, place your piece of fabric on one of your parchment paper. Now you have to place your pieces of wax evenly on your fabric. When your wax is arranged evenly, you need to cover your Beewrap with your second piece of parchment paper. Then, you must iron your Beewrap at a medium-high temperature. As you're ironing, it's important to apply a certain pressure to ensure that the wax penetrates the fabric. Also, it's important to push the excess wax towards the ends of the Beewrap to prevent it from being too thick. If you don't have an iron, you can simply put your parchment paper with your Beewrap and your wax in the oven to make it melt. When your wax seems all melted and well distributed, you can remove the top parchment paper. At this point, if you found that there's a lack of wax on your fabric, you can simply add pieces of wax or use the residue that's on your parchment paper and iron again. When your Beewrap is well soaked, you can gently peel it off and wave it in the air for a few seconds. Then, you can let it dry on a dryer for several minutes. Now, for the second method, we'll need a double boiler. So we'll start by adding water in our first pot. Next, we'll place the second pot on top and add our piece of wax to let it melt at a medium-high temperature. When it starts melting, you can agitate it to speed up the process, but please don't use your hand as I did to avoid getting burned. Then, place it properly on your cookie sheet or a piece of parchment paper for several minutes. When your Beewrap is dry, you may see wax clumps like in the video. To fix this problem, there's a very simple solution. You'll need to cut a second piece of fabric the same size as your first Beewrap. Then you'll need to iron them together so that the excess wax from the first bee wrap is transferred to the piece of fabric without wax. At this point, it's important to separate your two bee wraps quickly before the wax sets. If you notice that it's lacking wax on one of your bee wrap, you can add wax and iron it again. Then let them dry several minutes. Now that you can do your own bee wraps, you'll be able to produce them for different uses. For example, they could be useful for wrapping fruit halves or covering containers with leftovers. Obviously, the bee wraps should not go to heat to prevent the wax from melting. Also, it's not recommended to put it in the freezer because the wax could crack. For maintenance, we suggest you wash it in a cold soapy water. Also, if it becomes less effective over time, you can add wax and iron it again, simply.